Hi there. Today we are talking about the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I just read this book and I have 10 life-changing lessons to share with you today. If you're new, welcome. My name is Joy from the blog agingwellwithjoy.com. On my blog and on this channel, I share beauty, wellness, and self-development for middle-aged women. If that's you, please consider hitting subscribe. I believe that learning is a lifelong pursuit. It doesn't stop after college or when we get our job or build our career. It's a constant process of learning and growing and bettering ourselves and our lives. So that is what I am endeavoring to do by reading books like Atomic Habits, and I'd like to bring you along for the journey. I know I love watching educational YouTube videos, and hopefully you will enjoy these from me as I read one nonfiction book per month that will help us grow and better ourselves. Now, let's dive right into the lessons I learned from Atomic Habits. Lesson number 1, and probably the lesson that I found the most profound in this entire book, is that small changes compound over time to make big results. So what he puts forth in this book is that if you endeavor to be just 1% better in something every single day, by the end of that year, you will be 37% better than you were at the beginning of the year. Now, 37% doesn't sound like a lot, right? But if you think of all the times you have started or endeavored to build a habit, and then because you didn't see the immediate big results you wanted, you just stopped. I know I face this a lot in my own weight loss journey. I struggle with controlling my weight, especially the older I've gotten. And so what I fall into the trap of often is I make some changes, I step on the scale once a week, and when I don't see any results, right? When I don't see those big results, I get discouraged. But what James Clear is saying in this book is you don't have to try to reach an end goal. It's really more about small changes in your everyday life, in your mindset, in your thinking, in your actions that will compound over time to make you a better person. So one of my favorite quotes in this entire book says, "Making a choice that is 1% better or 1% worse seems insignificant at the moment. But over the span of the moments that make up a lifetime, these choices determine the difference between who you are and who you could be." I just think that is so profound and so life-changing. This is literally my favorite lesson. Like, we don't need to see big results. We don't need to focus on losing 50 pounds or running 10 miles. What we can focus on every day is just being 1% better at what we're doing than we were the day before, are going to completely change the trajectory of our entire lives. Lesson 2, if you really want to make a change, then focus on the systems in your lives rather than your goals. I know this seems counterintuitive, but what James Clear is saying is that goals give us direction in life. They help us to focus on the thing that we want to accomplish. But in order to get there, in order to get to those goals, we have to have systems in place in our lives that make reaching those goals possible and attainable and easy. And the key is easy, and we'll talk about that more later. But think about how you can implement systems in your lives rather than just saying, hey, my goal is to, say, run a 10K. How are you going to get there? What is the system in your life on a day-to-day basis that you are going to use to implement the small changes that we talked about to make yourself consistently better and better towards achieving that goal? Because the goal is great, but what he says is the difference between people who are successful in their goals and people who are not is the difference of the systems and the environment they're in and how they design their lives to propel them forward. Lesson 3, to change our habits, we first have to change our identity. Who we believe ourselves to be is who we are. We act on what we believe about ourselves. So let's say, for example, our goal is weight loss. If you believe yourself to be the kind of person that is going to fail at a diet program, that is the kind of person that eats junk food and sits on the couch all day, then that is the person you're going to stay. You're not going to be able to change that because you are identifying with that person that is eating junk food and sitting on the couch. What he says is that you need to identify with what you want to be. So rewire your brain to think about yourself as a person who doesn't eat processed food, who only eats healthy whole foods. Think of yourself as a person who gets up and exercises every day, regardless of how I feel, right? Once your mind starts to believe that that's the person you are much more likely to actually go and do those things, to live that life, because that is who you believe that you are. Lesson number 4. There are 4 laws to behavior change that make it much more likely that you will succeed at your goals. I'm going to read these to you. Number 1, make it obvious. Number 2, make it attractive. Number 3, make it easy. And number 4, make it satisfying. So obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. Those are the keys to succeeding in your goals. If you want to succeed in creating habits, then you need to implement these 4 things into the systems that you have made to help you accomplish them. He gives some examples in the book of these, like make it obvious. One of the ways you can make it obvious is if you want to go and exercise every day, lay out your gym clothes, pack your bag the night before. Make it obvious so that you don't accidentally leave the house and forget that you're supposed to pack for the gym that day. Make it attractive. As humans, we are naturally more likely to do something that feels attractive to us. So you need to create your systems in your environment in a way that make them attractive to you. Make it easy. We as humans always like to take the easy road. It's just human nature. So rather than fighting against human nature, instead, let's embrace it. Let's make our systems and our habits easy to obtain, easy to reach our goals. The easier it is to perform a habit, the more likely you are going to be to do that habit. Make it satisfying. There are a number of ways you can do this: by rewarding yourself, by keeping track of it on a calendar or a habit tracker, which we'll talk more about later. But you need to make it satisfying for yourself to perform those habits, those tasks. Lesson number 5, you need to set implementation intentions. This is a very clear plan that you lay out that says from A to B how you are going to do something. It answers the questions how, where, when. So rather than saying I'm going to the gym after work, be a little more specific than that. You pack your bag the night before. You lay out a plan that immediately after work you're driving to the gym. You'll arrive at the gym at 5:15. By 5:30, you will be doing your workout. You want to be very specific as you can when you are using implementation intentions. Studies show that people who have a clear plan that answer the questions when and where are much, much more likely to stick with their habits than those who don't. Lesson number 6, habit stacking. Habit stacking is the process of creating a new habit by linking it to a habit that you already have in place. For example, if you need to take your medicine every morning, stack it on top of a habit you already have. So for me, that would be when I get out of bed in the morning, I immediately go to the coffee maker and set my coffee. So I linked my habit of taking my vitamins to making my coffee. So it looks like this. I wake up, I walk out to the coffee maker, I set the coffee maker, I immediately take my vitamins. This way, it makes it much more easy for my mind to remember that I need to take my vitamins than if I were to just say, make my coffee, go get ready to leave in the morning. I'm probably going to leave the house. In fact, I would definitely leave the house without taking my medicine or my vitamins. But because that habit is now linked to another habit, a primary habit that I've already developed in my life, get out of bed, set the coffee maker. Now I know that I immediately take my vitamins while my coffee is being brewed. I've linked it. I've habit stacked. So stack one habit on top of another habit, a habit you're trying to build on top of a habit that you already have in place in your life. In this way, it's easier to build habits. Lesson number 7, your environment is crucial to your success. Now, this is just common sense. I think we all know that our environment, the environment around us, has a huge impact on who we are. I want to read you this quote from the book by James Clear. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. If you want to be successful at anything in life, you have to set your environment up for the win. You have to make your environment one of support, one of access to the things you need, and get rid of the things you don't. So an easy example of this is if you're trying to eat healthy, don't have junk food in the house. Set yourself up with an environment that supports the habit that you are trying to build. Instead, stock your refrigerator with whole foods, fruits, and vegetables. Now, obviously, that's a very easy example, but you can use this and apply it to anything in life, right? If you're trying not to drink, don't have alcohol in your house. Set yourself up in an environment that is going to be productive and helpful, that's going to make it obvious, easy, attractive, and satisfying, like we talked about before. Those are the things that need to be in your environment in order for you to build those healthy habits. And you need to remove anything from your environment that would lead to you continuing bad habits that you no longer want to have. Lesson number 8, we can learn new habits, even hard ones. This chapter was incredibly encouraging to me because now that I am 46 years old and I'm middle-aged, I sometimes have this perception that I can't learn new things, that it's just too hard to develop myself in some other way. But that's not true, right? That's a lie. That's a lie we tell ourselves. We are more than capable of learning new habits, of living a new lifestyle, of becoming the person we want to be. Human nature is always evolving. We're always changing. We're always becoming something. And whether that's something worse or something better, we are rarely stagnant as human beings. Most of the time, we are going one way or another. We are making choices, right, that take us down one of two paths, either a path we don't want to go down or a path that we should be on, that we do want to go down. So James Clear says that the way we learn to do these hard things is first about your mindset. You have to have the right mindset, right? It's back to that belief in ourselves, that identity shift we talked about earlier. Our minds are powerful, and you have to have a positive mindset. You have to believe that you're going to be able to learn these new habits, that you're going to achieve this goal that you set. And along with that is the fact that you can't stop, you can't give up. Okay, so it's repetition. We form good habits and bad habits by repeating a pattern of behavior. Whether that's a bad habit, like buying a candy bar at lunch every day, or a good habit, like going to the gym after work. Every day, what we do repeatedly becomes a habit. So the idea is just show up, right? Just repeat the thing that you want to do over and over and over, whether you're doing it well or not. Eventually, that thing will become a habit. Lesson number 9, use the 2-minute rule. The 2-minute rule is basically a rule that says just show up for 2 minutes. 2 minutes, because really we can do just about anything for 2 minutes, right? So the idea is that whether or not you do something well, whether or not you're good at it, whether or not you feel like it, whether or not there are obstacles to you doing it, you show up anyway for 2 minutes. Okay, so if you're trying to build a habit and it's a hard habit, say you want to be able to do 10 push-ups. That is probably not hard for some people. It would be extremely hard for me. Okay, so say that's your goal. Then you can do this one of two ways. You can say, okay, I'm going to show up and just do push-ups for 2 minutes, whether I only do 1 or whether I do 2 or whether I do 8. I'm going to show up for 2 minutes and I'm going to do push-ups. Or I'm going to show up and my goal for the first month is just to do 2 push-ups. The idea is that you show up, that you repeat the process over and over and over until it becomes a habit in your life. So don't be discouraged if you're trying, like me, to start yoga, for example, and you're awful at it, like me. Don't worry about how well you're doing it. Don't worry about whether you're flexible and strong and you can hold the movements. Just show up consistently every day, even if it's only for 2 minutes. Because what happens is you begin to identify with being that person. Now you're not a person who skips push-ups and exercise. You're a person who does push-ups. You may only be doing them for 2 minutes a day. You may only be doing yoga for 2 minutes a day. But suddenly you have a mind shift. After a few days of doing this, you're no longer a person that skips a workout. You're a person that shows up. You are beginning to shift your mindset and your identity from the person who skipped a workout to a person who does push-ups or does yoga every single day. Not because you're doing it well, but because you're showing up. So if you have something in your life that you've been wanting to do, but you always opt out because it feels too hard, just try to do it for 2 minutes every day. Try to follow the 2-minute rule and see if you can build this into a habit. And then the results, the being good at it, the being strong, the being flexible, those things will come in time. But what you need to do now is shift your identity to being the person that does those things. All right, so now that we have learned what we need to do to build habits, he also makes the suggestion that we use tools in order to help ourselves. And 2 that he suggests is using a habit tracker and an accountability partner. So for a habit tracker, I love this. I was so excited when I read this in his book because if you watched any of my previous videos about the new year, I use a habit tracker. It is one of the fundamental ways that I am able to force myself or to train myself to do what I want to do on a daily basis. Otherwise, I all too easily opt out. But in a habit tracker, you can actually check off a box every single day. And over time, you start to see all these check marks and you're like, look at me, I'm accomplishing something. And that feeling of accomplishment, as we learned earlier, encourages us to continue on in building the habits that we want. And then the second one he recommends is an accountability partner, because we all know that when we have to answer to someone, we automatically try harder, right? When it's not just ourselves we're failing, but other people, then that ups the game a little bit. We don't want them to have a bad perspective of us. We don't want to feel like we failed in front of the people that we love or have around us. So use a habit tracker or some tool like it, even if it's just a calendar to check off every day that you've done something. And also see if you can find a person in your life that will hold you to the goals that you set, who will be encouraging and supportive, but also hold you accountable when you haven't done what you were supposed to do. I found this book both educational and also very encouraging. I learned a lot from it, things that I'm going to be able to implement into my own life to help build the habits that I want. And I definitely think that it's a good read. If you like to read nonfiction, I think it's a fairly easy read. He puts forth his ideas in a very straightforward, easy to understand manner. He gives examples all through the book, which are very entertaining, and they keep your attention on what could otherwise be a dry subject. He does a really good job of that. So this was my book for January, and I do recommend it. I do think it's a good read. I hope that you learned some helpful things from my video today. I hope that you will join me next month. My book for February is The Woman They Could Not Silence by Kate Moore. I'm going to be reading this book in February and doing a video on it at the end of the month. I'm excited to read this. This is an interesting one for me. It says it's the shocking story of a woman who dared to fight back. So this was back when it was a strictly man's world, so to speak. I can't wait to see what I can learn from this book. So join me in February if that interests you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. Bye-bye.